Call to order this District of Clearwater Council workshop for Tuesday, January 21st at 12:30. I'd like to begin by acknowledging we're fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Sim people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. Under Section 3.1, Section 232 of the Council Procedure Bylaw number 268, 2022, the rules governing council meetings are hereby suspended when council is gathered for the purposes of a council workshop. We have several delegation presentations today in relation to previous grant and aid. I do note that Candle Creek half marathon, and Valley Pride have submitted theirs in writing, is my understanding of things, but the rest of them are probably here. It looks like it. We'll go right into it. First up is Clearwater Slow Pitch. Come on down. Introduce yourself and fire away.
I actually wrote something this time. Oh, I know, it's going to be all official now. So you guys have been very gracious to us, and the last few years have given us the in-aid grant, which has actually helped us out enormously. I'm going to start with explaining how it has helped with our tournaments. The cost of running a tournament is actually really expensive. And one of the things we do is our payouts, we pay out all our profit. The reason why is because we are competing against like the bigger capital like Kamloops for tournaments, but at the same time, we are being chosen above that and beyond. There are the aspects of hosting a tournament. Sorry, I went off key here, so now I'm like, I'm nervous, sorry. Keeping the cost to a minimum, which in turn keeps our payout to competitive to the larger tournaments. There are many aspects to hosting a tournament. Teams choose where they play by, one, the diamond conditions, which ours are really great compared to most places out there. To location, people love coming here. They love to see our mountains, and they love going up to the Wells Grey in between our tournaments. But most important, it's about how much money they can win. Teams choose. If you're going to win first prize $1,000, they're going to want to come because we pay a lot of money to go to tournaments, from hotel costs to our food, and we bring our families when we go to this. So it's not just a one-person cost. Like when I go to a tournament, it costs me about $500, and that's in Kamloops staying at the ranch free of charge. So there is a lot of money coming in when they do come, and that's like per family. With the Clearwater District's help, teams are actually choosing us. We have teams from Kamloops, 100 Mile, Prince George. We have even 2 teams from Alberta that come, one in May and another team that comes in our September tournament. Plus, we have our local teams. We have 8 local league teams that play. We were up to 9 when we had the Pipeliners here, but when they left, they took 3 teams with them, so we're back up to 8, so we are growing. Now, for league, the cost has increased. Like we just got the new cost this year for renting the diamond for league. I'm not surprised. Honestly, it was really cheap compared to other places, but it does add up the cost. But we have the cost of maintenance. We also maintain the diamonds. Like you guys do the mowing of the lawn, but the infield is our responsibility as I don't know about this year, but as in past. So we have the cost of that. We have the cost of our supplies. We go through at least 2 to 3, sometimes even 4 sets of bases a year. We go through 2 sets at least per tournament, 1 per diamond. So those do add up on top of it. With the grant, though, you guys help us keep our costs down. We have to buy balls and bases and rakes and hammers, like stuff like that. Because we maintain the diamonds, that also means that we have the cost of buying the stuff to maintain it. League is the reason why, though, our tournaments are really successful. We are growing in a ball community, so much so that we have been approached to do more tournaments. In fact, this year alone, we've gone from 2 out-of-town tournaments to 4. One Easter break, we're going to host one. We have one May long. We have the one September 6th weekend, which is our last one that we host in the season. But as I was explaining earlier we have started a ladies team now. and the men are following suit. So we're actually doing a King and Queens tournament in August also. And that tournament, we already have 2 teams. Our May tournament, we can only take 12 teams. We're at 8 teams already. We've, as of September last year, we even had teams prepay for our May tournament. So we are making waves in the ball community, and people do talk about us. I was supposed to have some letters of recommendations today, but they didn't get them out to me. But yeah, thank you for hearing. You guys have helped us out a lot more than I can even say.
Thank you for that. That's actually really impressive. And, you know, I think we all probably at some level understand how many hotel rooms and restaurant visits and that sort of thing come from this. So,
The Wells Gray
Yeah.
is now sponsoring. They're going to give a discount to all ball players. They're going to do a special that night, so that way they're to get people out of their campsites and into the hotels and that. So the businesses in town, they want to work with us.
yeah, awesome. That's awesome. Council, have any questions? Yeah,
Yes.
Councillor Matheson?
Yeah, just a quick one. Can you clarify, like, when you have the actual tournaments, are they self-supporting with the funds that come in and the entry fees? And
We don't
do you
make
have an
any.
idea? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
We don't make any money on the tournament itself. We make our money on our 50/50s, our beer gardens. We pay out all the profit. So they normally pay, this year we upped our fee to 500, but it was usually 450 plus 2 new balls. And our prizes are $1,000 for first place, $750 for second, and $500 for third. That's based on 8 teams. We've been up to 10 teams. It still stays the same just because of how it sits. So with 12 teams, we might be able to do more payouts and different categories like A division and B division.
Just one more clarification. So with the district money that is given, is that used in the tournament, like for the tournaments, or is that more of a other stuff?
Yes, actually, I skipped that part over in my little thing. The funds that we would have normally paid for the diamonds, we've actually put that into paying for NSA umps. So as anyone that has played ball before, when alcohol is involved and money is involved, tempers can get pretty high. So we have one ump, Ben, who comes from Kamloops, and he umps our main diamond, and we have Maverick and myself, we've become NSA umps. So we pay these umps to come, and they keep the peace, basically. And with the in-aid, that money actually went to that in particular, so we could bring in umps from Kamloops. Because when we do, we have to pay for their travel, we have to pay for where they stay and stuff.
Okay, that's fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah, Councillor Brad?
So hello. Oh, there I am. It sounds wonderful. I love all this interaction happening and bringing into the community, and the fact that you bring families and they all stay here and spend money in the community. That's fantastic. I had a question that caught my
Yes.
ear. Why is it your responsibility to look after the infield?
I'm going to be finding that out after this meeting, actually. With the cost of what the fields went up to, which to me, I find is actually really reasonable. For those that don't know, we used to only pay $500 a year. It went up to $1,500. That is to me very reasonable. So there's no whatsoever, and I totally forgot your question.
Oh, I'm just curious because I would have thought that would have been our responsibility.
I
And the
don't
same
know
with the
why. We
equipment.
used to also take care of the track before the fence too, but that we can't take care of gravel. But now it's overgrown grass.
So I'm curious, do you maintain it for minor ball as well?
Minor balls,
Or do they have to maintain
they
themselves
maintain,
as well?
from what my understanding, they maintain it themselves too.
So, and are you guys looking to become, I'm curious, looking at your financial statements that you have, you do really well, you bring in a lot of money, but you give it all out. Are you
Yes.
looking at trying to maybe offset that a tiny bit somewhere along the way?
Yes, we have some actual plans. We would like to put a play park back down there in the far corner there where it's safe. When you first walk into the diamond, if you're walking in this way,
Yeah.
to the left,
Okay.
there is a dead space. No balls go over there because the way we have our diamond, it's actually really good. We used to have a play park there. So we are going to try to work with minor ball, and we're probably going to be coming forward hopefully this year or near the end of this year to put that space into works, and then that's where some of our money will be going to. So we want to invest in ball, and we want to invest in the park, because a lot of the families that are playing now, there's a lot of kids, like a lot, like they're not my generation. Like I'm the old person on the team,
Right.
right? Most of them, their kids are in kindergarten or grade 2 or 3, and there's nothing. So we're planning on investing in,
Interesting.
yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Any more questions?
Councillor Frizzle.
You said the fee for the teams are $500 a team. What
Yeah.
is that in comparison to other tournaments?
700 and 600.
700 and 600.
Yeah, there's 2 tournaments happening the same week in a spring break, one in Kelowna for 600 and one in Kamloops for 700.
Okay, thank you.
And we were 450 last year, so we're just only going up $50.
Yeah, still a good. I have friends and family that come play in it. They don't tell you that, but they do. Any further questions?
No, thanks, Lori, for coming in and presenting that. I just want to thank you for bringing back reviving what was always a strong sport in this town.
I'm passionate about it.
Yeah, and I know it is with you for sure. No, I appreciate that. It's nice to see it brought back, and we have great fields down there.
Oh, we're lucky.
The way minor ball has gone over the years too, and it's dropping like flies in my opinion.
Oh,
from
minor
when I grew
ball,
up.
I just had a meeting with Kelsey this morning.
Yeah.
They're planning on doing tournaments, so the fields are going to be used this year for sure.
Perfect. I like
Good.
to hear that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Come on up. Done poking around.
Hello, I'm Matt Sitch. I run the Dunfolk Around Music and Arts Festival that happens out on our property on out by Dun Lake. We formed the society a couple years back now, just in an effort to get more funding and grants to make this event better and safer and everybody and for everybody. And yeah, thanks to you guys for the past 2 years for supplying some funding for us, which was a huge help. Last year, it contributed to part of our security team that we had hired from the Robson Valley. They run the security for Robson Valley Music Festival and a few other events in the area. So yeah, with their help, it made everything run smoothly and safely for all the attendees. So we get last year we sold about 200 tickets, which was our goal, which was awesome. So kind of filled in our venue and our space. And this year we're hoping for kind of around that again, or 250 tickets would be ideal. Takes a lot to put this on. We have kind of about $30,000 of expenses every year to contribute to this thing happening through programming fees. We get about 25 artists every year, musicians from all over Western Canada to perform in this thing. So yeah, that's not cheap. So I don't know. Yeah, that's kind of all I got. Just really appreciate the help and support for this thing in the past few years. It's been humbling to have support of the district. I thought it would happen. So,
Any questions? Yeah, go ahead. Councillor
Thanks for
Manzi.
coming in, Matt. The first one I did have for the last couple of years, you've been coming in for this grant and aid. I haven't noticed that the area aid director has been involved in any funding, just because your property is in Area A. I was just curious how come they weren't ever asked. I noticed you come to Clearwater.
Yeah.
And ask the district, which is fine. I'm just
Yeah.
more out of curiosity if they've ever been approached for. any support.
no, but they're definitely on the radar to reach out for funding. It's just kind of a more of a thing of managing all the deadlines for all the grants and everything that kind of come out. So
I'll bring it up
unfortunately, we
with,
just kind of missed the boat, but
I'm meeting with Director Zhao tomorrow as part of
Okay.
TNRD stuff, so I'll bring it to his attention.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we'd love
Yeah.
to meet for sure.
Yeah, it'd be nice to.
Any support is
And
helpful.
just one
Big
more
time.
thing. Save your money on the Kenwoods. Let me connect you with someone for radios.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
Don't waste your
Appreciate
money
that.
on those.
We're shopping around and we got some intel from from Kevin Deckert here, but
Yeah, we can. I have someone that can get you what you need.
okay, great.
So
'cause, yeah, radios
I'll
are
get your
huge.
number after. I'll connect with you.
Sure. Yeah, there's lots of moving pieces throughout the weekend, so since we've introduced radios, it's just helps everything run a lot smoother.
Save
Can't be
your money
everywhere
on
at
the
once. So
Kenwoods.
yeah, yeah, they're not cheap.
No.
Yeah.
Awesome.
at all.
Thank you.
Any further questions? It's nice to know the numbers of people. How many people do you feel stay out there for the entire tournament? Do some of them stay?
Yeah, we provide camping on site.
Yeah.
We've kind of developed a few campgrounds on the property, so we're limited for RV and car camping, which
Yeah.
a lot of people want to do. So we've had to help with Simp, being our neighbors. They own the hatchery and now the Bible camp. So we're working towards getting access to the old Bible camp, because then we could increase our numbers a little bit. Our only other option is a neighboring property from Miller's across the road. So trying to work on that relationship as well.
Okay.
Yes.
And this is my last question.
Yeah.
How far afield are you getting people coming to this, just off the top of your head, like all across BC?
Yeah, I mean, people are
Performers
traveling
and
from,
visitors.
It's surprisingly, it's a lot of people from abroad, like all over from Vancouver Island, northern BC, down to the Kootenays. A lot of folks come from Alberta. We've already got our early bird tickets for sale with about 20 tickets sold so far. And Kamloops, a lot of folks from Kamloops are coming out, and kind of the Caribous. But we are trying to find ways to, get the locals to come out to this a lot more often. But
Yeah, it's
Dunn
one
Lake
of those
Road
things. It seems to be more on the radar of people outside of town than it does in time. So
yeah,
it's
and I guess,
interesting.
I don't know, maybe that's just the reputation we've been building and word's been spreading. But if we had a good shuttle service in town, that'd be super helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure it would be.
Everyone knows the condition of that road, so
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a deterring factor, but
Yeah.
we are working towards that. So
Any further questions? Awesome. Thank you for your time. And if you two want to quickly get a number, and you can
sure thing.
pass that on.
I have our financials from last year that I haven't.
Wait, it's already me number map. 320.
Okay, and up next, I believe Abby is here from Rotary, so we'll just get you ready. And a public notice, if anybody would like a dozen eggs from Councillor Sim, she can bring them in. Yeah,
No, I think those ones would be safe.
I'll hook you up with that. later.
there you go. Okay.
Really half a dozen for what it would cost these days, right? So we'll do that. Awesome. Thanks a lot, man.
Good luck. So basically.
Thank you. Go ahead, Abby, sorry.
Sorry. Just basically saying thank you very much from the Rotary Club of Clearwater for funding for last year's Christmas light up. We had over 100 people, I think, showed up. We gave away all our hot chocolate, so there must have been at least 100 people. Anyways, it was still successful, and we're going to hopefully build on it for next year. Maybe have a book reading, and I don't know, and we're toying about bringing back the hamburgers and hot dogs and stuff. We'll have to see if that's doable.
Need a winter this year. In time for the
Well,
tea
it was
light up, so.
pretty nice not having to plow the.
I'm sure it was, yeah.
Parking lot before the event, and it wasn't cold, thank goodness. But it still felt like Christmas. It was
Yeah,
still nice.
for sure.
But anyways, so just thank you, and just what we did with the money is we are going to fix up our main light event, which is the 3 deer on the sign. And we're gonna repaint and relight those so they look a little bit more presentable. But we have enough lights and stuff to last us for a while, so we're good. Thank you very much. Any questions?
LEDs, yeah, I was gonna say, Councillor Bratton, go ahead.
Yeah, it's so beautiful to see. I love all the lights. Do you get any hassles with the all your stuff that you have out? Does anybody bother it, or are you lucky?
Well, yeah, a couple of years ago, somebody helped themselves to an extension cord, one of our very expensive ones, so that was replaced.
Okay.
But no, everything seems to do well, because we leave everything at the info center usually until the spring when it's a little warmer, although if this winter continues, we might be able to take it down earlier. But other than that, that's the only thing we've had.
What system do you use to put the lights in the big tree? How does that process work?
Initially, we had BC Hydro put the initial ones
okay.
up, but we had on-level contracting On the Level Contracting lent
Okay.
us a man lift, and our president got up in there and threw some more lights up. Yeah, anyway, so that was great.
Perfect. Thank you.
No, it definitely does cheer things up. Any further questions? Thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Abby. Royal Canadian Legion, come on down.
Good afternoon, Mayor Blackwell and council members. I am Wayne Wazowski, representing the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 259 in regards to the First Responders Dinner held September 15th, 2024. My presentation is for information only. We had over 70 first responders from all three fire departments, along with the Upper Clearwater Fire Brigade, RCMP, BC Ambulance Service. We also had guests, Uslov, MLA Peter Millibar, and the mayor himself, Mr. Blackwell. All the first responders enjoyed the meal of roast beef dinner with all the trimmings. And on behalf of the Legion, I would like to extend a big thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on this? A great show. It's so nice to see people, and it's sort of so interesting to see actually people who are on call at that time.
Yes.
Coming in and occasionally responding to a pager or the need to go on a call. It just shows you how hard the job is, for sure.
Yeah.
Comments or questions? Councillor Bratton.
I'd just like to say thank you very much for recognizing them, because without first responders, we don't have much of a town, really. So I think hopefully they appreciate it as well. But I personally think it's a really great event for them.
They did greatly appreciate it. The Legion puts this on, and we don't make any money for doing it. The only money that we make is out of the bar if they have beverages, but most of it's pop and water, so.
Yeah, because half the time they're on call or a pager.
Yeah, exactly.
And-
So,
and
you
it's
know,
an evening, so-
And they're being public figures, and they're in the public, so
Yeah.
they have to have this personnel that say, I'm not a drunkard or anything like that. So
Yeah.
they are very logical people and know what they're doing.
Councillor Matheson.
Yes, I'd just like to thank you for doing that as a retired first responder from both police and ambulance. I think it's a genuine gesture on behalf of the Legion and is very much appreciated by everybody. And thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, further questions? If not, thank you, Wayne. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. And that's it. Oh, one more. Oh, you
No,
got one more.
I haven't got my t-shirt.
Oh, you've got the other hat. I didn't
Yeah.
realize you were both hats. Sorry.
I am,
Okay.
yes. I got drafted this morning.
So is there any chance we can get you one of those ones with the little light on the top of it?
I've got the coat there that says,
Oh,
you know,
okay. Well, that's good. Yeah. It would help differentiate between the two, but fire away on
Yeah,
Clearwater Volunteer
okay,
Firefighter Association.
representing the, good afternoon, Mayor Blackwell and council members. I'm Wayne Wazowski, representing the Clearwater Fire Department Association. In regards to our firework display that we hold October 31st, Halloween night, and the fire department wants to say thank you very much. The money that you grant to us is greatly appreciated for the fireworks. Last year's show was $5,500, so every little bit that we get is greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor Frizzle.
At the last fireworks, how many people actually showed up? Approximately.
Approximately, I would say 120 cars with, on the average, four people per car, including children. So it could be, there's lots of people up there. So
500-600 people, easy, plus
yes,
volunteers. Yeah.
yes.
Wow. That's basically 1/4 of town.
Exactly.
That's
You know.
impressive. Yeah. And you're not handing out free beers, so that's pretty amazing. No. Further, Councillor Matheson.
Yes, I'd just like to thank you for putting that on. I mean, a lot of communities now are backing away from fireworks for various reasons and irresponsible behavior, and it's so nice to see something continue like that in our community, done in a safe manner, and so many people enjoying it. So thank you. And I can actually see it when I'm laying in my bed, looking out the window of my bedroom. It looks right at the whole display. So thank you.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. And the people that are setting off the fireworks are trained and certified to do this. So they are all licensed to set off fireworks. So
Councilor Bratton.
How long was the show this year? I regretfully missed it, but do you know?
approximately from 20 to 35 minutes.
Right, very good.
Yes.
It's crazy how expensive they are, eh? Jeez.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, good job though.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much. You're free.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Wayne.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 6.1, Grant and Aid 2025. There are a couple of recommendations, but I believe Ms. Glasson is going to speak to some of it. And there's a PowerPoint as well, I believe.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Would you like me to go through the PowerPoint? It's consistent with the PowerPoint we had in previous years. I'm happy to do that if you would like.
Anybody need to see it? It's part of the record of the meeting, so and it is the same one we've seen every year. Okay, cool. Thank you.
So I'll just start with a few highlights. So this report is on page 9 of your package. It includes the council report, a presentation, a policy, and all of the applications and their attachments. Last year, we set a policy or resolution that we would budget about 1% of taxation, and that equals to about $33,000. We have 9 new grant and aid applications, and we have to also consider the one multi-year grant and aid application from the Wells Lively Arts Society, Wellsbury Lively Arts Society. And the total of these applicants represents about $29,200. $27,200. We have several applications that are cash, and we have several applications that are grant and aid. And we can go through them line by line if you would like. If you go to page... Yeah, 33 of 74, I think it's 71,
33, yeah.
33. And we can, if there is any conflicts, just let us know and we'll pause and make note of it, and then we'll carry on. And also I've provided some text about how to make your resolutions for grants and aid. So the first application we have is the Wells Gray Outdoor Club for the Candle Creek Marathon. They're requesting $500 in cash.
Any questions or comments on that? I'm surprised by this one all the time. Juanita goes out and does a lot of advertising, just driving around putting up posters. And it brings in people that just completely fly under the radar of this town, but it fills up hotel rooms and it gets, almost professional, or if not professional level attendance by the people that are running in this. It is a serious business for the people that do this. It's such a passionate sport. So I think this is one of these things that's just going to build. They had a heck of a year this year because I think the weather was horrendous, but I think this is one of these things that could be a destination. It already is a destination event for this town, but it could be a big destination event for this town. Councillor Frizzle.
I just wanted to add on to that they had 196 people that registered. Not all of them showed up because of the weather, but people are coming and booking that same day. And they are very professional. I take the registration on Fridays, and they're very dedicated. They go up and they check it all out, and it's going to be a great event for many years, I think.
Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, what I kind of like to see in this is that they are actually, it appears that there's an effort being made toward becoming more self-sufficient with selling T-shirts and things like that, and registration fees, and it shows that there is an effort toward actually contributing themselves to the event, and I think it's a great event for the community.
For sure. I would actually like to, at some point, see us changing this from a grant and aid to a advertisement or sponsorship in that sense, so that we take that away, because I know a lot of grant and aids, especially for building events like this, only usually last a couple of years, and then the policy is to let them pass just so that they aren't under constant taxpayer support. But it is seed money to get these things going, the same way that the District of Clearwater put forward seed money to get Tourism Wells Grey as a destination marketing organization forward. So, yeah, Councillor Matheson, further?
Yeah, I really agree with that idea of going to a sponsorship. To me, that kind of lends into the whole economic development of our community, rather than giving money out to support something that's starting out. I think that would show a long-term commitment toward supporting an event like this from our community and bringing people in. So I would be very supportive of that.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to slow pitch and stuff, I guess.
Would council like to make a resolution?
Oh, we're gonna do line by line? Okay. Somebody wanted to make a resolution that we donate $500 cash to the Wells Grey Outdoors Club for the Candle Creek. So moved by Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Matheson. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? And that passes. Thank you.
Thank you. The next application is three applications in one, so to speak. So the Clearwater Slow Pitch is requesting a in-kind grant and aid. One is for the league fees, one is for the fall tournament you heard, and the spring tournament. Yep. These fees do reflect the new fee structure that we have.
Okay. Questions, comments on this? Yeah, another one that brings in a lot of people from out of town. And has been going, it's one of those things that people come to. I know the Blue River tournament and the one here in Clearwater, some of the same teams, and they just absolutely love it, and they put people in this town for years and years, and they come back for other visits as well. Yeah, Councillor Frizzle, maybe Councillor Ratton.
I have to sort my thoughts out here. You go ahead.
I think I'm kind of the same. I with the league fees, I have a little bit. There's a reason we up the fees. We have to become in line, and I don't want to see anybody stuck. But I have a question. If they are maintaining their infield, then I actually question their fees, why they're charged so high. So if they have, I don't know if this is where I need to question this. I'm shocked that they have to do that.
Mr. Mayor, is this something that's been traditional? Is that why it's continuous?
They
or?
do not maintain their infields.
Okay, just during the tournament or something? Or?
Once a year at the start of the season, they organize a work bee to pull weeds in the infield and the outfield strip by the fence. And that's all the work they do. During tournaments, they have to rake their infields.
Okay, so yeah.
But Public Works staff maintains does all the cutting, line trimming, mowing, harrowing, and dragging of the infields.
Yeah. So, and I assume that if there's any like janitorial work or garbage collection, that the Public Works does that during.
District pays for all of that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Further, Councillor Bratton.
How often do you guys harrow the fields, the infield?
Probably every 2 weeks.
And how often is it mowed?
At least weekly, depending on weather.
So there's a little bit of discrepancy because she's under the impression that she maintains it. So there's something going on there.
Ms. Clausen could give you some exact figures on what Public Works puts into the Kapuscinski Park.
Anyways, not to call that into question, but I have a little bit of a concern over granting them their fees, but if they could make an effort towards regaining their amounts, maybe charging their people more money for current tournaments and whatever, or fundraising to a certain degree so that they can offset that. They have to be able to be sustainable. I don't know.
Yeah, no, fair comment. Absolutely fair comment.
Not that I don't want to see them happen.
No,
I really appreciate them.
Yeah, Councillor Frizzle.
I'm sort of on the same page as you, Councillor Bratton. In the past, they've had the fall tournament fees and the spring tournament fees, right? That's what they've asked for in the past, but not the league fees.
Oh, last year they also asked for the.
They did
fees,
ask
yeah.
for the league fees last year. Okay. I would like to see them at least make some effort to put something forward towards the fees.
So
Because-
you could, if that's what you want, you could make a motion, because it is 3-1,
Yep.
to reduce the league fees down, the amount put towards league fees. I mean, we've done that in the past when we've
Yep.
been trying to be fair and balanced on grant and aid. So that's up to, that's the desire of council. If you want to make a different motion, then, no motion's been put forward, but if you
No.
want a different number than is on the paper here.
I guess I have to remember too that we did offer that when we did up the fees, that if they did come back and request that, I just remembered that now, that we did offer
Yeah,
a cushion of a year, so.
yeah, and that's fair, and thank
Yeah.
you for bringing that up, because that is an important point, because it's not just for grant and aid, we're gonna hear that probably from other organizations that, there was time to get used to the new fees, so. Councillor Frizzle.
That we offered them support of a year. I mean, I support, yes, but not necessarily for the full amount. I don't think that.
I think I would suggest half would be my like to I don't know how we make a motion, but to do the tournament fees and then maybe half their league fees.
So it'd be 750 plus 900, which math is, yeah. I'm looking at Ms. Klassen to do the math in my head
1450?
because,
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, you could make a motion that we do 1450 in kind, if you so desire.
Any other discussion?
How does the rest of council feel about that before?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Be nice to see you make a little bit of an effort towards it, but as a pass ball player myself, I have a soft spot for that as
I know,
well. So
yeah.
it's
And it's not that I want to put difficulties in the way, but I would like to see some effort to become more self-sustaining. We already know that we're going to have trouble with funding pockets here in the next while. We're not going to have all the money that we need, so don't want to be just say
Yep.
yes to everything.
Yeah, fair enough. Councillor Matheson.
I'm trying to come to terms with how we can support one event fully, and then with a similar event that we're looking at cutting back on a very similar amount of money. And I just a little concerned that where the discrepancy is in there and why we would support one and not the other fully, just so I clarify.
Which one are you?
Which one are you talking?
I'm looking back at the running event up at Kendall Creek, and we've granted their request, and now we're doing offering to set back another athletic event that brings a lot into our
Which is a
community.
lot more money. That's
It
why.
is also in kind, so it's not, it is work that needs to be done, but it's, yeah, so, yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Further discussion, Ms. Klassen. Oh, I just,
Mayor, may I offer just an observation between the two? When you're looking at the Wells Gray Outdoor Club, you'll see that they have a list of organizations that they have approached for funding, which is great.
Yeah.
However, when you look at the list of funding for the Clearwater Slow Pitch, we're it. it doesn't list any other funding organization, although they do get their funding from revenues that they charge for their fees and things, but that's an observation why it's different between one and the other.
So if maybe they do a little bit of legwork and try and find other pockets of funding, is that what? Because they're basically coming to us and then revenues generated at their events.
Yeah, no, and that's fair enough. I mean, that's when we do these things, the goal isn't always to fund them forever. It's to eventually make them strong enough that they can stand on their own. But it's also, and once again, that's why on certain things I would like to see go to a sponsorship model so that we're buying into events versus subsidizing them. There's a difference in tone there. I think that's pretty important. Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, I've just, I got confused there a little bit with the funding. So that is a combination of in-kind support and cash. Okay, got you. So yeah, I would be supportive of a reduction in light of that.
Okay, so my simple math on what Councillor Bratton was doing was $1,450 total between the three. Sorry, $1,650. $1,450. Yeah, so $750 plus $900. Okay. $1,650. Okay, so would you like to do a motion for $1,650 in kind?
I would make that motion.
Do I have a seconder on that? Yeah. Okay, further discussion, $1,650 in kind?
I just would like to make a comment
Yep.
that I don't want to see them destitute. And I still want to support them and make sure that their program operates.
For sure, and
also have to think on the district's end of things.
yeah, and I think there's time to, for them to advocate and for us to suggest to other funders that donating to them might be a great idea. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The league fees here are a bit of an outlier considering we have a bunch of other clubs in the community, hockey, curling, what pay fees, and we don't do a grant and aid towards those fees. So perhaps and I know it was mentioned when the fees went up that if they need help with fees, get a hold of us. So it might be appropriate to send a letter to the organization if council goes with where they look to be heading on it, of reducing the league fees, to say our intent isn't to fund league fees in general, but we know you provided, or we're providing this assistance to you because the fees went up, and perhaps the trend will be that we get away from league fee support altogether, and maybe if they have early warning for next year, then they'll realize that they need to adjust their pricing on their events, and then we can stick with the event funding as opposed to actual core, kind of that sustainability type funding.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Prime, did you have an extra comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Blackwell. I know Councilor Bratton moved it. I didn't see who seconded it.
Councillor Matheson did, sorry. Thank you. Yes, and I agree with that letter, and we'll just add that to the motion if you don't mind, Councillor Bratton. Good. Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Next is Dunfolking. Around. Okay. Comments, thoughts? Oh, sorry, Ms. Clausen. No, it's to us. I kind of looked and didn't see anything coming up there. I think that much like other music events we've had over the years that have happened in this valley, it's good, it's culture, it's that sort of thing. But once again, it's the sort of thing where I think we need to start going, okay, at what point is this thing going to run on its own? And what point do we say, okay, it has to fly on its own? And I think back to Shirley and Serenity, who ran things basically without coming to grants for the most part after a few years. But she did still have a time where she did find sponsors or had financial assistance and passed the hat and things like that. So it's not clear cut, but Yeah, I think we need to have that conversation because we are going to get hit with a lot of requests for funds this year. The world is not in great shape, and after yesterday, it doesn't seem to be one of those things. So, yeah, let's take that into consideration. Further thoughts or comments on this one?
I actually have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we able to add to our little rundown of how many years in a row we've supported?
We can.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
I think this is our third year.
okay. I think he's.
This is their third year.
Third year.
Third year asking. So there you go. So, okay. Councillor Frizzle.
I would like to see this society to ask the TNRD. You're in the district, in the TNRD district, and they should be participating. So that would be something I would be looking for.
I fall under TNRD area.
A.
Oh.
Oh?
Oh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, everything on the south of Joseph Creek.
Oh.
Like Little Fort, everything is all Lower Thompson.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think it would be wise to ask both. You're on
Yeah,
that borderline.
I do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Ask
Yeah.
both, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. They could split it. It's economic benefit to both of them. So does anybody want to make a motion on this? Councillor McKenzie.
What did we do, 2,500 last year, Matt?
1250.
Was it 1250 and you asked for 2,500, maybe it was? I can't remember. Lots has happened last year.
1,000.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, to be, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think 5 is a little bit rich, unfortunately, for what we're trying to do. But, you know, at the same time, I'm looking down at Wells Gray Lively Art Society at 8. So, but we also have in the past reduced that as well. So, Councillor Matheson.
If I'm correct, the actual amount they're asking for is 1,200? No, it's asking for 5, but last year we gave 12. Is
50.
that correct?
Well, 50 was half of what was asked.
So last year, there was a decision by council to give them 50%. So it was $1,250. It was $2,500 was the ask. This year, the ask is $5,000.
Okay. Yeah, I've got some concerns that, you know, this is a big ask considering the economic climate that we're in right now, and we have to, as a district, tighten our belts a little bit. And given that this is in a TNRD area, and from what I feel, the majority of the participants are staying on site or somewhere around there, so I question the economic benefits to our community here, and we're supporting it, or being asked to put in $5,000. I think that this is a TNRD responsibility to support something like this, possibly the Canadian Arts Council, something along those lines. I just struggle with, in these times, supporting financially an organization like this, and I could see a small amount going for it to support it, but definitely not 5,000.
Okay, do we have a number? Does somebody want to put forward a motion with a number?
Well, you know, I see on the other grants that a security costs about $500 or $1,000, and I'd be willing to go on those lines if they're using that. And what I gathered in the presentation is that was what the majority of the money that we donated last time went to security. So I am more than willing to help out a little bit with that, but definitely not the $5,000 range.
Okay.
I'm thinking more around $1,000.
Further thoughts from anybody else? Councillor Frizzle?
Could I have a clarification what POS means?
Point of sale.
Point of sale, is that what it was? Okay,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that's what it was. 'Cause
It
you had
means other
radio-
things, but in this case, it means point of sale.
Yeah, point of sale, okay.
We're interested in like a chip, like one of those card readers.
Yeah, yeah. Does anybody want to second Councillor Matheson's motion for $1,000? Or does somebody wish to make a different motion?
Yeah, I'll make that motion for $1,000.
Okay. Can I second it from the chair? Okay, thank you, Councillor. Okay, further discussion?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you can. This
Will
is-
your event still happen if you don't get the money?
Yeah, we'll figure out a way for sure to
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah,
Because it's a great event.
yeah. I'm,
That's the importance of these types of events.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Okay, I do have a mover and a seconder then. I'm gonna call the question. All those in favor for 1,000? Okay, I will be the third and we'll make that pass. Anybody opposed?
Not opposed, but
Okay, you can have it noted if you like. I would suggest also that Sim First Nation might be a good person to talk to for sponsorship. But yeah, I will talk to TNRD and tell them that you're coming their way. Yeah, honestly, Director Zhao and Director Haywood, both of them are very active and supporting of arts and culture as well, and I'm quite sure that they would probably both. They have also have a discretionary fund as EA directors, that they basically have a fund that they can fund things out of that aren't part of the regular grant and aid process. So they have funds available out of what used to be called gas tax every year, and it's a good pot of money. So it's out there. So yeah, for sure. Okay.
Can I just a quick comment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that everybody realizes that I really support the festival. I think it's a great thing. I'm a huge supporter of the arts. But for myself personally, given these times, I think our focus has to be on being responsible with our money within our municipality. And I think there are, like you say, other areas of funding that are more appropriate. And I think I'd like to make sure that we could offer a letter of support from our community for any future grants that they may apply for.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, we're more than willing to support it officially. And help find other funders.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. No further comment. Oh, sorry.
Thank you,
Councilor
Mayor
Mr.
Blackwell.
Prime.
I just wanted to confirm if Councilor Breton, if you were noted opposed.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, thank you. Moving on to first responders dinner for $500 with the Legion. That's a CAS request. Okay, Councilor Matheson.
I think it's a valuable resource or a thing in our community, and I'd like to make a motion that we accept it for $500.
Seconder or further comments?
I agree.
You the second, Councilor McKenzie? Yeah, the only comment, this is another one, I would like to start seeing these things, and I don't know if Area A contributes to this, but we're, once, much like we do Sportsplex funding with 60-40 split, it would be great if they pitched in 60-40 or contributed their own amount to this as well. And I will bring that forward because we are, it is people volunteering in our community, but it's also people volunteering in the communities around us. And it is valuable, and I'm glad the Legion does it, and it probably costs way more than that to do. I bet you this doesn't even cover their food costs this year. But at the same time, yeah, it's, we need to have this model where we start sharing costs up and down this valley, if it's involving people up and down this valley. So mover and a seconder, all those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Halloween fireworks, Clearwater Fire Department Association, $1,000. Thoughts, comments? My comment on this one is having this, especially in a time when we have drier, longer falls, and taking fireworks out of neighborhoods is a good aspect to this that I don't think everybody considers all the time. They do fundraise for this because I know it costs a lot more than that, but at the same time, yeah, it's, it's also, but fireworks are also, across the world, something that is on the decline for public safety, pollution, et cetera, things. But it's up to council if they would like to do $1,000 for this or not.
I move
Councillor.
that we grant the request, $1,000.
$1,000. Do I have a seconder on that?
Second that.
Second by Councillor McKenzie. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. This is an interesting one. Clearwater Secondary School PAC, and I note it's the PAC asking. If it was the school board, we wouldn't even be touching this with a 10-foot pole legally, would we? Sorry to put you on the spot here, but
So, yeah, so what this is the PAC committee would like to see the core competency program, which you have a list of there. Typically, it costs about $10,000 to run this program for the students to go camping, building rockets, baking and pottery, and that's just to name a few, adventure, mountain biking, paddleboarding. Anyways, and what's happened is that the school board actually reduced the budget down to $2,000. So really, this is a school board making an impact on the PAC committee. That's the ask for the school board. And they're also going to apply for a grant as well, just to see if they can cover the costs of that.
yeah, this is a tough one. I know how important it is to the kids and stuff. Go ahead, Councillor Brown.
Are we talking the whole high school, or is this?
This is coming from the Clearwater Secondary School Parent Advisory Council.
So we don't know how many students this covers, if it's 8 to 12 or just 11, 12?
I didn't ask that question.
The core competency, I think, is 8 to 12.
Is it?
I think so. When I went in and did volunteered there, it was at that point.
Okay, so we're close to 300 kids.
Total expenses are noted at about $10,000 as mentioned, so.
Yeah.
We do understand from news reports and other conversation the difficulty that the school district is in for 1 year. I would not want to fund this on an ongoing basis by any stretch of the imagination. But at the same time, I would hate kids to lose out
Absolutely.
because of an accounting error.
I have.
Councillor Frizzle. Further
Can I
comment?
just say that once again, they should be looking at TNRD as well for funding. They have a lot of students coming from the Area A, so they could be getting funding from them as well.
Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, this has got me going on both directions here. I really struggle again with, and it's not the school's fault, but I really struggle with organizations downloading onto other organizations to pick up the slack. And I realize why it's happening this year, but it puts the school in an unfair a disadvantage for sure. I'm for funding it this 1 year. I strongly believe in outdoor education and experiences outside of the school as part of the curriculum, and I support it in that regard, but I just have to make it very clear that this is a one-time thing, and that, again, like Mayor Blackwell mentions, that TNRD, all areas should be involved in this as well, not just us. To me, that's, again, a downloading on us to support TNRD areas, and we are focused on our community. So I'm okay with going with the full 5,000, or possibly we could reduce it pending TNRD involvement.
Okay. So, I mean, if we once again follow things, I don't know the percentage of children from Area A and Blue River actually would be part of that. So Area B as well. But in terms of things that we have, sort of a traditional benchmark is 60-40 split with Sportsplex funding. That would mean $3,000 versus $5,000 would be, in my mind, an option. Or you know, if it's going to kill this program, you know, do we say 1 year only? Definitely 1 year, doesn't come up again, and do the full amount. Further thoughts?
I agree with Councillor Matheson there. I'm a little torn both ways. It's seen the deeper pockets out of that entity and they're struggling to support something like this. Like this is our next generation too. And, you know, the outdoor learning and some of these groups, I think it's imperative that they attend some of this stuff, you know. They are a future. And this isn't, they don't plan on this being an annual request. This is a one-time thing. For that reason, and my soft spot for our next generation, I would go for the full funding, dependent on what everyone else is thinking. But
You want to make that as a motion for the full 5?
I think so.
Move full 5?
I would like to do that.
Seconder on the full 5.
I have a comment.
A comment, go ahead. It hasn't been seconded
Just
yet.
to bring to light, we just allowed $1,000 for half an hour of fun when these guys are a whole week, and it's our total youth of our community. And so I would be for the $5,000 for the school, understanding that the school board should have, you know, that it should be their puppy, but it's, I would hate to see the program lapse if TNRD wasn't able to, if they didn't have time to be able to ask them for their money. So, because it's the youth.
So are you going to second that then?
I'm going to second that.
Okay. Further discussion, Councillor Frizzle?
With the understanding that this is a one-time only.
Yeah.
Correct. Fair enough.
That should be put into the motion, I think.
Okay. Yeah, everybody okay with that as a friendly amendment, that this is a one-time only? Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. And along the lines of a one-time, I think it would be appropriate to actually send them a letter stating that they get the letter stating it's one-time funding. The expectations is if you have a continuing, you ask that you would work with the regional district, and that would be spread out equitably.
Yeah. And are the mover and seconder in favor of that, adding that letter to the motion? Okay, thank you. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. MedShed space, 4,800. Okay, thank you for declaring conflict. I should have done that earlier. It usually comes up there, but we're in a workshop, so we're not in normal. MedShed space, it's in kind for $4,800. And we'll let Councillor Frizzle leave the room. That is, Laura Pickering, I believe, has put in the application here.
Just to
Yep.
provide a little bit of feedback for the men's shed, it is under the Wellsbury Country Senior Society. I spoke with our Director of Operations, Chad, and he was saying that it's about 350 square feet, and it probably maybe about $400 a month, and that's what I've gone with for this estimate, just to make sure that we're, you know, reporting this grant and aid, and it's occurring regardless if,
Right.
well, unless they move on, but we are providing assistance to this group, and we're not providing, and they don't have to pay any rent, so we just want to report it and
Right, so it's not actually, we're giving up space, and I know in areas we're tight on space, but at the same time, this is not, other than heating and associated electrical, we're basically, this is what it would cost to lease / rent this.
that's the intent.
Yeah, okay. I think this is a great program for senior men mental health. It targets a part of the population that just does not get targeted in any other way. As it's in kind, I mean, we either accept it or we don't. But it is another one where them as through the senior society asking for assistance from other people would be great as well. And they do all sorts of favors. They fix things for people. They do projects for people. So they are paying it forward. They are very generous with their time, but it does keep them out of trouble. Other thoughts or comments on this one?
Yeah, I'm pretty much in support of that, especially being it's an in-kind. This is a place that I've been down there a couple times or a few times, and it provides an amazing service for getting guys out of the house and connecting with other like-minded people and providing some interesting services to the community that keep getting highlighted more and more in the last little while about what they bring. And so I'm fully in support of it, and I'd like to make a motion that we support it.
Okay, mover, seconder on this one? Councillor McKenzie?
I have a
Yeah,
comment.
comments for discussion?
The 4,800 is basically for paperwork purposes. We weren't renting that out to anybody before they used it and all of that. So this was
Yeah.
empty space that they have actually filled for us and provide great service to the community on top of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
It represents the benefit that we're providing to them.
Right.
And that we will report it in our grant and aid
Okay.
reporting.
Noting fully that at some time in the future, we may need the space back.
We may.
So that would be a future discussion, and that always has to stay in the back of council's head.
Right.
Okay, so we have a mover and a
Getting
seconder on that.
Guys out of the house and
Okay,
connecting with
I
other
think it's already
like-minded
done.
people and
All
providing.
those in favor, and that always has to stay in the back of council's head.
Right.
And that passes. So we have a mover and a seconder on that.
Guys out of the house. and
We'll just take
connecting with
a
other
slight.
like-minded people and
All
providing
those in
some
favor, and
services.
that always has to stay in the back. To correct audio, that's odd. We're good? Okay. So, and then the last one on the sheet is Wells Gray Lively Arts Society for $8,000.
So for that,
Well, since we just, according to your attendance record, you're always here.
Yeah, you're always here.
Okay, sorry, Ms. Klassen, continue.
So
The
last year,
attendance
the Wells
record, you're
Gray
al-
Lively Arts Society requested a 3-year grant and aid. Last year it was $10,000 and this year it's $8,000. There's no motion required. It's just for
Just- it
information
is.
and it goes against your budget for 2025.
Okay, we've already granted this. Okay. Thank you, because,
There will be what again?
I believe it's 5.
Okay.
okay.
It's
thank
declining
you.
balance.
Yeah. That was the intention with all these things and other things, so, okay.
I'm wondering if that could also be directed toward TNRD for some possible funding.
I
Yeah.
think they,
Tourism, Wells Gray, other entities, maybe even some of the tax that comes off the hotels and things.
I think it was
I mean,
suggested.
there's got to be other funding other than the District of Clearwater. So I think that's something they really need to, I mean, they provide so much service to tourism during that event. There's people from all over the world come to it.
It would be really nice to see some local businesses sponsor that as well.
Yeah, I think, they have to start stepping up to the plate as well.
But on a positive note, they have done things like vendors. The car club out has attracted a whole bunch more people, and I think the likelihood of being able to sell space to food trucks, etc., like that is just going to increase. It's the sort of merging of all these things together that works very well. But yeah, I mean, there are definitely tourism businesses in the general area where people walk from that benefit a lot from that extra night of entertainment in this town, in a town that is still lacking in evening entertainment compared to a lot of other tourism destinations like us. So, okay. So anyways, we don't have to move anything on that one, but that was good comments. And we are at the end of this. So motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor Bratton. All those in favor? And that's passed. And we are free until 2 o'clock. Thank you. I call to order this District of Clearwater regular council meeting for Tuesday, January 21st, 2025 at 2 p.m. I would like to begin by acknowledging we're fortunate to be gathering together on the unceded territory of the Simp people who have been caretakers of this land since time immemorial. There is one late item coming up under in camera and then another one I'm seeing the signal for. What's the second one?
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. It's 2 items in camera under 1K of Section 90 of the Community Charter, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and at the view of council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. And 2B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or federal government, both between.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you said that. Are there any other late items that anybody would like to add to the agenda? If not, can I get a mover and a seconder with the late items? Moved by Councillor Bratton, seconded by Councillor Mackenzie. All those in favor? There is an agenda from regular council. No, that is not correct. Oh, no, sorry, that's right. Never mind. I was thinking minutes. Are there any known declaration of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest that anybody would like to declare on any of the items on the agenda? Seeing none, moving on. Item 7.1, Hazel Wadliger, Splash Park plaque and NTSP user fees. Come on down, Hazel.
Well, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff. Thank you for letting me speak here today. So first of all, I'm here on behalf of the Clearwater Rotary Club. And last year, the Rotary Club erected a structure at the Splash Park. And one of our founding members, Tim Panko, was the big driving force behind that structure. And I think we worked a couple of years on it, getting, permissions, electrical or drawings or for foundations. I worked a lot with Roger, and we finally got the building pretty well together, but a week before it was up, Tim passed away, and it was really sad, and he was a founding member of our district, but also the real push behind that structure. So I'm here to ask if the Rotary Club we want to put a small memorial plaque on one of the structures. It would be just like a 8x8 or something, just in memory of Tim. And
I'm here to submit.
Okay. And so that's my ask for today. If we could get that permission, we would go ahead and get a plaque made. So.
Yeah, Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I've known Tim for a few years. I know he's a founding member of Rotary, and he has contributed so much to this community over the years. I've had many adventures in the mountains with him and his family, and very unfortunate of his early passing. And I think that would be an amazing recognition of his service to this community. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we need a motion on that? Yes. No. Yeah?
Yes, Mayor Blackwell, we would need a motion for that.
So, Councillor Matheson, are you going to make the motion that that be allowed?
Make a motion that the plaque be installed.
Okay. And Councillor Bratton, are you seconding that motion? Okay, thank you. Any question, Councillor Sim?
So
Comment?
is that at the district expense? Do we need to acknowledge that, or is that something Rotary wanted to?
Oh, no, we're going to get
Okay,
it made.
thank
And
you.
we would also, when we get it made, we'll send a picture of it to you before we erect it, or ask permission to erect it before, so
Okay, thank you.
it's just a small sign.
Yep, for sure. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. And on to your next item.
Well, that was easy, thank you. Let's see if you're going
One
to
might not be that easy, but go ahead.
So about a month ago, I'm talking on behalf of the curling club. And about a month ago, I was watching the meeting online, and thank you for doing that. I really appreciate that, being able to watch the meeting online and see what's going on in town. But anyway, so when the finance director gave her talk on the, I guess it was the budget, I heard that the Sportsplex fees, the user fees were going to be going up by 20%. And that was a bit of a shock because we had been told earlier in a user meeting that the fees were going up, and we all understand why the fees need to go up, but it wouldn't be more than 10%. And like I say, I do realize that they haven't gone up in 5 years, but even 5 years, if you went up 2% a year, that would only be still 10%. I just think it's going to be a real hardship for the minor sports like the figure skating club and hockey. They have quite a hard time. They do have to do a lot of fundraising for that. The curling club is going to go up, but we have a bit of an advantage. We can raise money through the bar, which we do quite well. It's still going to be close to $4,000 extra that we're going to have to come up with. So I would like to suggest that if you could go up like 10%, which seems to be what we expected and what people were thinking that they might have to raise, that if you had a graduated increase next year, like 2% per year over the next 3 or 4 years or something like that. And I realize, like I say, I do know the costs go up. But also in the meeting that I was watching, there was a housing report. And one of the things in the report was it said that Clearwater was kind of in the low socioeconomic end of the scale. And so I think it's going to be hard for a lot of families if it goes up. So that was just, it's just a suggestion that I'm bringing forward from the club.
Yeah, and thank you. Yeah.
And I do see today you have some kind of a schedule where it's all worked out, but I don't know if it's been passed, the 20% or.
The budget has not been passed at this point.
Okay.
Sorry, hold on, correct. I'm being corrected there. Go ahead.
Sorry, the fees and charges have been passed.
That's
and
right, sorry,
adopted
that
by
is under
council.
the fees and charges bylaw. There are other remedies as well to this, though. Any comments or questions for Hazel Wadliger on this? Yeah, we'll take that under advisement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to tell you, we're going to have the Fun Love Where You Live Bonspiel this weekend, starting Friday night,
Okay.
Saturday night. Come and cheer on your team, your favorite people.
I've been there in quite a long time. But yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you for those presentations.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Moving on, 8.1 minutes of the regular council meeting held December 19th. Moved by Councillor Sim or question?
I just had a question on
Okay.
that. At the last meeting, we had passed the motion for early adoption of the emergency management analysis report, and after that had been passed, CAO Johnson had asked that we have an early adoption of that report. And I just wanted to clarify: did you need any action done now to facilitate that, or is it fine just wait until that report is then done?
Thank you, Councillor. So the early adoption I asked for was to get approval to fund a consultant to come and do that third-party review of our emergency management processes writ large. I believe that approval was given, so at this point, that's all. I'm not seeking any other approval on
Okay, it was just a comment you made after the motion had been approved, so I was wondering if it needed, other action to it. It was just a loop back on that request, given its priority and importance, which you have shared. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments? If not, can I get a mover and a seconder to approve those minutes?
Moved.
Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Frizzle. All those in favor? Okay. Nothing under adoption of minutes of committee meetings. Development and zoning, DVP 2402 Davy Road. There is a council report. I believe we have somebody from planning online to speak to this.
Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. We do have Ursula from TNRD Planning Services. She is having some audio difficulties hearing us, so we can hear her. Let's hope we can prompt her.
Okay, we'll give that a second. Technical difficulties. We've had a few today with this system here. Just give it a second. She can hear us, is that correct? Or she can't hear us? Just wondering how we're gonna relay questions if we have them. Oh, there we go.
Hello?
Can you hear?
Can everyone hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear us?
Okay, awesome. I am unable to hear on the district's end, unfortunately, so maybe if we can channel any questions through the chat, then I can address them that way. Okay, I'll just get my PowerPoint loaded up here and I'll share my screen. And can everyone see the PowerPoint that was just up?
No.
Perfect.
Oh, sorry. No. There it is. Hold on.
Okay, excellent. So this first planning application is for a development variance permit for 1485 Davie Road. The property is located just between Davie Road and Miller Road on the outskirts of the district, and it's zoned RL1 rural. Not too long ago, the property was vacant, but has recently had a building permit to site a double-wide modular home with an attached patio, which is the subject of this variance application. So essentially, through the building permit process, it was discovered by legal survey that the rear property setback didn't meet the required 6 meters and was just shy of that at 5.91 meters. So of course, this variance is a little bit quite minor, and we do unfortunately have to process it because there is no discretion. It has to be at least 6 meters, and if it's any less than that, it does require a variance. So this is an after the fact request, and planning staff just want to make it clear that we adjudicate these applications as if they were as if the building weren't there and as if they were asking for permission, and not treating it like after the fact, just to assess whether or not we would support it. So in this case, we do support the requested variance on the basis that the variance is very minor and it will not impact the roadway in terms of any concerns around sightline or visibility concerns. The property also abuts a roadway rather than a neighboring property, so that diminishes any possible concerns around security or privacy from an adjoining neighbor, because there isn't a neighbor there. It's just Miller Road that's abutting that rear property line. And finally, there were no concerns noted from the building inspector or from District Public Works. So for those reasons, planning staff supports this minor variance and is recommending that a neighborhood mail-out be sent as required under Development Procedures Bylaw. So we will be, if council approves that, we would then bring a second report back to summarize any feedback that we get through the mail-out process. So I'll just turn it over for any questions.
Are there any questions? Speedy Fingers Prime here will be willing to type them in if anybody has any questions on this. Councillor Herring.
So my question is not for the planning department, but locally. Can requests like this not be handled by like a board of variance or a municipal approving officer? It just feels like a lot of extra work for these applicants for such a minor change to the project. So isn't there a way we can kind of streamline these requests in the future to make sure that they don't have to wait for a council meeting for this?
Let Mr. Johnson speak to that.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, I don't think Ursula can hear us.
Sorry, so
if
we're
she wants to
asking
answer
about
that
Board of
question.
Variance or Municipal Approving Officer, where we are at for delegation of minor variances. Oh, question is being answered by CAO Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ursula. So this for minor variations, including a minor setback variation like this, that authority to do that can be delegated to a city official. So it could be delegated to the CAO or presumably to the approving officer to do that. So but it has to be formally delegated by council. And if that delegation hasn't been made, then it has to go through the process, which is what we're seeing right now.
Okay, further question, Councillor Herring?
Can I make a motion now to get that process started?
Thank you. And what I would suggest is, with that motion, then we could look into it and provide a detailed list to council of what can be delegated to staff, and then you could take a look at that and for consideration. Thank you.
So we'd be asking for a small staff report on that. Would be motion for a small staff
Yeah,
report?
I'd like to make that motion for sure.
Do a seconder on that motion? Seconded by Councillor McKenzie. All those in favor? Okay, and then on to the recommendation. To clean this one up. Does somebody want, you'll move, yeah, you'll move the recommendation. Do I have a seconder?
And for 9 centimeters, I will second the recommendation.
Thank you. Thank you for the metric conversion. Any further comments or questions on this? Councillor Matheson?
Yeah, I think if we did the variance out there, half the homes in town would have to go.
Yeah. Yeah, no, fair comment. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. And then we're moving on to RZ 2403, 343 Clearwater Valley Road, and there is a staff report, and I believe.
Okay, wonderful. So I'll move on to the next one. And my apologies, it's hard for me to see what's going on in the meeting as well as what's on my PowerPoint. So I appreciate the patience from Mayor and Council as I just work through the technology here. So this next planning application is for zoning amendment, rezoning 2403 for 343 Clearwater Valley Road. And so, sorry, I'm having a hard time actually playing the slides. Okay, I'll just have to click through them like this. So the property in question is located on the corner of Clearwater Valley Road and Eden Road. It's designated in the official community plan as commercial, and the proponent does not propose any changes to the OCP as their proposed rezoning is consistent with the OCP. They wish to retain the C2 service commercial zoning and simply add a site-specific amendment to allow cannabis retail, again, only on this specific property. To recap, the district's zoning bylaw defines cannabis retail as the sale of cannabis, but excludes the sale of cannabis for medical purposes in accordance with federal legislation and regulations. So in terms of the proposal, the tenant of this building wishes to occupy the fourth space within this commercial building, which is currently vacant. So at present, the commercial building has an automotive repair shop, a cafe bistro, and an accounting office. And the owner would like to basically occupy the last remaining space with a cannabis retail store. Planning staff is supportive of this proposal. And we also, just a couple important points is that the proponent will have to obtain a cannabis retail license from the province if this rezoning is successful. I did ask them if they'd like to include the rezoning with the cannabis retail license and process it concurrently, but the applicant confirmed to me that they'd like to keep the processes separate. They would like the comfort of knowing that they have rezoning approval before they spend the additional time and money on the cannabis retail license. And if this rezoning is successful, then they would apply to the province for the cannabis retail license. And at that time, there would be further public consultation as mandated under the liquor and cannabis legislation. At that time, we would need to have more details about the business, such as the hours of operation, and then we would be relaying that information to the public at that time. So there would be another future public consultation process with this one if this rezoning is successful. And just to add to that, we also, staff looked at Clearwater's policy 1902, which has to do with liquor and cannabis license referrals. And there's some key criteria there in what we look at when we're looking at these cannabis license requests. The first one being that we only will consider cannabis retail in the C1 or MX1 zone. Obviously, this one doesn't fit within that, but that's the purpose of this rezoning that we're going through today, is to consider whether or not we would allow cannabis retail in the C2 zone for this specific property. In terms of number limitation, the district only allows 3 cannabis stores within the district at any given time. There is currently 1 cannabis store, which is Raft Peak Cannabis, and this one would be for the second store within the district. So it still fits within that 3 number limitation. And lastly, the third main criteria is distance from schools and parks. And staff did a measurement, and this site is located more than 150 meters away from the nearest school, which is the Clearwater Secondary School. So it does meet that criteria and is consistent with the official community plan, and would add an additional community amenity within the Wells-Gray Gateway Development Permit area, where we want to have more commercial services. So from that, planning staff is recommending first and second readings of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and then scheduling a public hearing. So that concludes my presentation, and I will turn it over to any questions.
Any questions?
And also, I do apologize. I realize now that my slides were not, I don't know what's going on my end, but I wasn't really able to show all of my slides, I think.
Councillor Matheson.
I've got one question. If you could just enlighten me on the Ministry of Environment and Parks authorizations and remediation branch, and how that ties to the unit that's within the building. I'm just kind of confused by that, how that can be a condition for proceeding.
I'm sure she'll answer it, but with the info center is within range of that. That might be the issue, and that is actually class.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see a question here regarding the remediation branch and how it ties to the unit in the building and how it can be a condition for proceeding. So yes, I am not a particular fan, I guess, of the way that this is a requirement, because it's absolutely right. So just to backtrack here, so for every rezoning, we have a legal requirement under the Environmental Management Act to have the owners fill out either a contaminated site waiver, or if they're aware of any Schedule 2 activity, then they have to complete a site disclosure statement, and then we are obligated to send the site disclosure statement to the province. And so typically, when the commercial use is still occurring on the property, so in this case, it's automotive repair, which is a listed Schedule 2 activity that the owner had to declare. But because that commercial use of automotive repair is still occurring on the property, the Contaminated Sites Branch isn't looking for them to remediate the site at this time, but as a formality, they require that the owners apply for what's called a release notice, which there's really no better way to say it. It really is quite a formality just for them to say, like, okay, for this specific rezoning application, we grant you the permission to go ahead, because the commercial activity is still occurring. They don't have, they wouldn't have to remediate the site, but they still technically do need like a release notice from the province. We can continue with the rezoning application process. We just can't give final adoption until we know that the province has basically given them a release notice and said that it's okay, you can continue with this rezoning. We're not going to make you remediate the site at this time.
Thank you.
And,
Thank you.
Councillor Matheson through Mayor Blackwell. Did you have a second question there about the info center?
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. I just wanted to clarify that for anybody listening or anybody in the audience that I had this feeling when I read it that there was an environmental issue, and I just want to make sure that there is not an environmental issue involved in this, that it's just a formality. So they're not cleaning up an environmental mess to make this happen. Thank you.
Hey, I do have a question, and I see other hands up. Are the other businesses that are currently in there, particularly accounting office and the cafe, are they appropriately zoned? Is it appropriately zoned for them? Are they C1, C2? Do we already have a precedent that somebody's operating outside of the correct zoning?
He's got good fingers.
Question from Mayor Blackwell. Are the other businesses in the building aligned with the current zoning?
Yeah.
I am not entirely sure. I can quickly have a look right now to see. So it's C2. The C2 service commercial zone does allow a wide array of uses. So it does allow a restaurant, so that would cover the cafe bistro that exists. It allows a professional office, which would account for the accounting office that is there. And then it also does allow vehicle sale, service, rental, and repair, which is also very broad. So that would cover the automotive use that's there. So yes, I would say absolutely that all of the three existing uses comply with the zoning.
Thank you. Councillor Bratton and then Councillor Herring.
I'm a newer type counselor, so I'm unsure if this gets rezoned and for whatever reason cannabis doesn't happen. Any other business could happen in this under the new rezoning, if that happened.
From Councillor Bratton, if this is rezoned and if for some reason cannabis doesn't happen, could other business still utilize this space? Yes, absolutely. It's rezoning for use, not the user. So if a different cannabis operator wanted to open up shop, they absolutely could. The only caveat I would add is that there is still a stringent process with the province in terms of getting a cannabis retail license. So they would look at things, they would actually look more at the user. As far as I know, they also do criminal record check and things like that. So they would more so manage who the actual operator is. But from a zoning standpoint, yes, it could be any cannabis operator if it's successfully rezoned.
And just to clarify, sorry, Mayor Blackwell, through to Councillor Bratton, any other space. So if they wanted to open up a salon there, they would be able to go in there. It wouldn't exclusively be cannabis retail.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, and Councillor Herring.
Okay, so that was one of my questions. My understanding from the staff report was that this is an exemption to allow cannabis retail sale in C2. Am I misunderstanding that? This is an application to apply to rezone this site as C1? Just this part of the building is being rezoned to C1. It's not a cannabis specific exemption, it's a rezoning. Okay. And then the second question.
Sorry, Councillor. I'm just typing this in for the Ursula, but that isn't actually the case in this scenario. Ooh. What side was at the end?
Sorry, my apologies. I'm just going to go back to the previous question very briefly because I feel like I didn't fully address it, and then I'll go to the newest question. So the other question was just, could another business still occupy this space? So if this is rezoned to allow cannabis retail, it just opens up the opportunity for a cannabis retail store to occur in that building. But if that business doesn't happen, then any other use that is permitted in the C2 zone could also occupy that space. So it could be a restaurant, it could be another office use. So it just adds another option to that site by allowing the cannabis retail component. And then for Councillor Herring's question regarding if this is a rezone to C1, but need clarification on site-specific rezoning. So no, this is not a rezone to C1. This is retaining the C2 zone and just adding a site-specific allowance for cannabis retail only on this specific property.
Okay, thank you. Further questions, Councillor Matheson, and then back to Councillor Herring.
Yeah, I'll just make a statement on for myself personally that this rezoning is supported by the OCP as reported. It's a multi-purpose, and competition is non-negotiable. I mean, it's not council's decision whether another business should come into town that's going to conflict with another business. I mean, it's free enterprise out there. And
Councillor Matheson making statement on competition, no question. Okay.
So I support the application and yeah, it's I think it's investment in our community. It's jobs that we need, and I think it addresses all the bylaws and all the regulations. And I don't see how we can refuse something like this.
Councillor Herring, go forward if you have another question.
So, one, to clarify that this is not a rezoning, though. This is an application for a site-specific zoning amendment. So it will remain the same zone that it already is, which leads me to the question, why not, if that building is so adequate for the C1 zone, why not rezone it as C1? Why leave it in C2, but then have an exemption for this one unit? And then my second question that I'm curious about, and this is more just a procedural point, to clarify, if we approve this particular staff report, the next step is a public hearing concerning the rezoning, and then subsequently, if an application is made to the Liquor and Cannabis Board, there would be a second public hearing about that. So this is one decision, but there subsequently would be two opportunities for the public to input on this process. Is that a correct interpretation?
Okay, yeah, and just probably should get somebody to answer that before we move on to.
This ties in. It'll be this,
Okay, and then
expanding on it.
Mr. Johnson can probably answer some of this, but go ahead, Councillor Sims, so you can add your question.
I think maybe to tie into in terms of the public feedback is knowing what happens.
Just a couple questions here. So, Councillor Herring, why is C2 zoning excluding cannabis retail? And then there's the second question. So why is C2 zoning excluding cannabis retail? To be honest, I'm not entirely sure. My understanding is that so there was the policy 1902 that was created for the cannabis and liquor license referrals, and under that policy, it was just determined that MX1 and C1 were going to be the zones that allow cannabis retail. I would predict that maybe there was some concerns with allowing in C2 because C2 is typically the service commercial that is closer to the highway. So there's more like highway frontage. Maybe there were some concerns around just the visibility of it, cannabis retail being kind of right at the forefront of the community. That would just be my educated guess, but I actually don't know the background of why cannabis retail was never specifically allowed in the C2 zone. And the second question, if we approve this, what's the next step? Public hearing. And if there's an application to Liquor and Cannabis Board, there's a second public hearing. So yes, the next step, so if first and second readings are approved, the next step would be to move to the public hearing. And because the applicant wanted to get the rezoning first before they go on to the second stage, which is getting the cannabis license, it will technically be two separate processes that require two separate hearings. For this rezoning, it's a statutory, legally required public hearing. For the cannabis license aspect, it's called a hearing, but it's not a statutory public hearing, so the requirements are a little bit more flexible, but technically, yes, we do still have to gather the views of the public, and we do that by having a hearing. will be similar, and it will kind of feel like we're repeating it. But unfortunately, that is process. We have to do another gathering of public input as part of the cannabis retail portion, because that's a requirement under provincial law. And at that time, there will be more information that we'll need from the proponent, like their hours of operation is a big one. So we'll be getting more details from them on the actual business operation. And we will have to provide very specific comments to the liquor and cannabis regulation branch. And I did ask the applicant because we could have streamlined these processes and done them together, but the applicant really wanted to keep them separate. They wanted to manage risk and make sure that they have rezoning approval before they spend money on the cannabis application.
Okay. Councillor Sim, did you want to tie in?
I just wondered from staff's perspective is if we only introduced it and read this for a first time, what the next steps would be, as opposed to doing the 2 recommendations.
I'll let Mr. Johnson answer that.
Thank you. Typically, we do 2 readings prior to a public hearing. So I'm not sure to what end you would only introduce or just read it for the first time, if it's because then you're delaying the public hearing. So you're delaying the opportunity for the public to give input. So if you could speak to what the advantage you feel
I don't even know if there would be. It was just a question, because some other municipalities, what they do with just the first reading is they put it out to other organizations, and just clarifying that we would do it at that public hearing. So it's not the involvement of 2. So I don't see it as an advantage. I see it as just asking for clarification on our process.
Okay. Councillor Herring had further?
Yeah, I just wanted to restate. I think my question was misinterpreted there. It's my question is, why not rezone the entire building to C1 if it meets the requirements of being zoned for commercial 1? Why have a cannabis specific amendment? Because I think, as Councillor Bratton was alluding to earlier, if they were rezoning to C1, it would allow all the uses within the C1 zone to occur within that unit. So if a cannabis store did not go ahead there, it would be rezoned for a wider array of businesses. Is there a preference of the applicant that they remain C2 for some reason?
I think the clarification, and Ursula will probably get to this, is that this is not the owner of the building and the entire building asking for rezoning. It's specific to this potential operation, the applicant, the business. The owner of the building is not the applicant. Is that correct?
Mayor Blackwell, the owner of the building is the applicant.
Oh, okay. Okay. I just couldn't quite get that. So, okay. Thank you. Sorry. Keep typing.
That's true, Lynn. You're right.
So this next question from Councillor Herring, why not rezone the entire building to C1 if it meets the requirements? I believe this is related to maintaining the service station. So the applicant's request was to do a site-specific rezoning. For planning staff, this made sense because, again, the property is, it currently meets the C2 zone in terms of the uses that exist there. So we didn't want to unintentionally create other non-conforming land uses. And so it was just a simpler approach to just keep it as it is because it works for the other uses there, but just allow a site-specific in the C2 zone. The secondary question on who the applicant is and the building owner. So I will just need to double check the owner's names. I didn't have that up on the first slide presentation there. So the applicant would be the tenant of that commercial space, and his name is Kalwinder Singh Darasar, and the building is owned by Michelle and Terrence Langwood.
Does that answer the question? Okay, thank you. Okay, any further questions or discussion? Councillor Sim.
For the public hearing part of it, would it have to be that people would need to come, or would that particular meeting be available that people could chime in online? I'm just
Or written submissions.
or written, yeah. I just wondered like how we expand it. I just
Yeah. Generally, and I don't know if it's exactly the same with my TNRD meetings, written submissions for public hearings are allowed and accepted. They are collected in advance and distributed to council before the meeting. But I'll let either Mr. Johnson or Ursula speak to that.
Councillor Sin, public hearing portion in person or online or written submissions, what's the format? It's been a while since I've done work for Clearwater, since coming back from my parental leave. But how we did it before I left, we had the in-person public hearing with an option to attend virtually as well. That's my recollection. And then, yeah, absolutely. People also have an opportunity to submit in writing, and then those submissions would be read out at the public hearing, and they'd have a timeline when they'd have to get those submissions in to be included as part of the public hearing package. But yeah, they could submit in writing, they could attend in person, and then I recall that there was also an option to attend virtually. At the TNRD, that's how we do it anyways. We do in-person public hearing with option to call in via Teams.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Sim? Yeah, thank you. Any further questions? If not, does anybody wish to move the recommendation?
I'll make the motion.
Seconded by Councillor Bratton. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor of one?
Discussion.
Further discussion?
No, I just think that because first and second reading, that will be a great opportunity to hear from the community and get that feedback. And if we don't do that, we don't get the feedback, and then we're just making arbitrary discussions. So
yeah, no, fair enough.
I'm just supporting this.
Okay. All those in favor on one? Okay, and I read this for the first time. District of Clearwater bylaw number 312, 2025, a bylaw to amend District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133, whereas an application number RZ24-03 for amendment to zoning bylaw number 133 has been made, and whereas the desirable changes in uses of land have been considered, and whereas the zoning amendment conforms to the District of Clearwater official community plan, now therefore the Council of the District of Clearwater and an open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as District of Clearwater bylaw number 133, amendment bylaw number 31225, and we've voted on that. There is recommendation to, what is the desire of council on recommendation? Moved by Councillor Frizzle, seconded by Councillor Bratton. Further discussion on two. Okay. District of Clearwater bylaw number 312, 2025, a bylaw to amend the District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133. Whereas an application number RZ2403 for amendment to zoning bylaw number 133 has been made, and whereas the desired changes in uses of land have been considered, and whereas the zoning amendment conforms to the District of Clearwater official community plan, now therefore the Council of the District of Clearwater an open meeting assembles and acts as follows. This bylaw may be cited as the District of Clearwater zoning bylaw number 133, amendment bylaw 312, 2025. All those in favor? And opposed? Opposed by Councillors McKenzie and Herring. Would you like that noted on the record?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And thank you for that. And that will go to public hearing at a future meeting. Is it usually the next meeting? Yeah, usually the next meeting. Okay. There is.
Does raise a question though.
Yeah, question.
So on that, because if it's going to go to public hearing, what the report had said, it would go through the newspaper, which isn't always widely distributed. So do we have other mechanisms of which we would reach people who might want to comment on this?
I think our standard legal requirement is the newspaper.
It is that
still?
standard, but
Yeah.
does it do due diligence?
I think it's going to make. Yeah.
I'm just wondering what we do for our part.
Yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Sim through Mayor Blackwell. As part of our council procedure bylaw, we do post it in the newspaper as well as on our website, social media as well. As Ursula would have said if she was still here, they do also mail out to certain properties within a certain distance of the building as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And whether this will be the next meeting or the one after, it kind of depends on where it lines up with the statutory requirements for the notice.
Right. It may not be, because you have to advertise it in 2 newspapers. If
Yeah.
that cycle doesn't work, then it may be at a
It
meeting
may
after.
be the second meeting in February.
Okay, just wondering because we have interested parties here in the audience, so what
Yep.
they can expect.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification, and thank you for the question. Nothing under unfinished business, nothing under 12, mayor's report. Haven't done one since before Christmas. A lot of conversations on a lot of things, but the only one I'm going to highlight today is, as part of TNRD, had a meeting with Minister Farnworth, who is now Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, about highway safety improvements up and down our section of the highway as far as construction goes. Also put a bug in his ear to talk about highway patrol again, and passed it on to Minister Begg, who is now Public Safety Solicitor General, that we would like a meeting with him to discuss highway patrol as well, issues there. It was a good conversation, and yeah, I'll speak more about it at the next meeting, but it's a good start to getting a meeting on talking about highway safety, and noting in an earlier conversation with Councilor McKenzie and with other people that there are actually a lot of accidents still happening, just not necessarily the extreme fatals that we've seen over the last few years, knock on wood. Moving on, Councilor Bratton.
I don't have any actual business to report, but I'd like to give a shout out to Leanne Culp for organizing all our kids' sports with the arena, and all our activities that are coming up soon with Clearwater Hockey Days and all the different things. My grandson was playing hockey this last weekend, U9, and it was just a full house, and it was wonderfully run. And she does a fantastic job organizing that. Back 100 years ago, when I used to have to do this, managers had to do all of that, and it's so nice that we can offer that support, and so that there's less for the volunteers to have to make these things go flawlessly. So kudos to all of staff that has to support that. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Frizzle.
Thank you. I just wanted to make note that now the TNRD library is under renovation, that we have the library here in the seniors room here in the district, just down the way here. And so with that, I'd like to acknowledge and thank the Yellowhead Community Services for supporting seniors meetings and programs and giving us access to rooms in the community center while the library is being utilized in the seniors room. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and thank you to Yellowhead Community Services for providing that option there. Councilor Herring.
No update. Wow, no update.
I got lost in the mic there. Councilor McKenzie.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Nothing to report for me. Just want to remind everyone about our open house tomorrow. And if you got any input, come on out, and there'll be some of us around to answer your questions the best we can. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, it should be a busy one. Councilor Matheson.
Fairly quiet couple of weeks, dealing with a sick doggy, and thankfully that's dealt with. And I was approached by the local newspapers, and I will be writing a bi-weekly column expressing my views, as my personal views as a councillor and a member of the community. And council is not the official position of council in any way. It's just my personal views in the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Sim.
Thanks. Just wanted to thank the mayor for being so productive and just explaining to the community just the work that's being done on emergency management, and the fact that at the last meeting we did pass that need to get that report in so that our community is prepared, and also your emphasis on the OCP and doing that in this year, and how that ties into the economic development for community planning, the open house for tomorrow. And I'm just wondering if, as part of that, is if staff's going to be prepared to answer any questions around municipal business infractions. So just
Municipal, sorry, say that. I didn't-
infractions. So
Oh,
for example,
enforcement.
yeah, just enforcement, and what's under the municipality, what would be under provincial, and just I'll leave it there, but just so that we've got that, because I think sometimes there's some misunderstandings, and everybody's got their own lane.
Yes, absolutely. Had a ton of conversations at a lot of levels on this recently. So a general fact sheet, or the CAO is probably going to be at that. His understanding of who's responsible for what in the zoo would be, I'm quite sure, a lot of people's concerns.
And I think that the other component of that is that for citizens who do have questions, is where would they direct their questions? And just, having those contact informations, and there's just some clarity.
Yep, no, for sure. I'm quite sure a lot of people would like to know that, and I 100% agree with that statement. Thank you. Anything further? If not, is there anything to report on this from the CEO's side? Are you good at this point? Thank you. Moving on to new business. 16.1, SIMP Memorandum of Understanding. There are multiple documents in your report and then a recommendation. Questions of staff, or do you wish to comment to this first, Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did prepare just a small submittal report I would go through. So, Council, as you're aware, that we currently have an MOU with the SIMP First Nation, and that was from 2010. The one we're talking about in this report is an updated MOU, which SIMP has asked us to sign, and which the TNRD has signed off on. Valemont has signed off on it, and it's before other councils as well. So my report here is just points out the difference between those two MOUs that we have. So council would be aware of what the new ask is. So updates included in the new MOU versus the old MOU are specific mention of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which everybody refers to as UNDRIP. That was adopted by Canada in 2016, and then in 2019, the province of BC adopted DRIPA, the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, which was an attempt to put UNDRIP into law in BC. So our new MOU mentions trying to achieve the spirit of reconciliation and UNDRIP. So trying to achieve that spirit of it means that we're trying to work together towards prior informed consent and notification to First Nations, and making sure we're more open with SIMP with regards to our land use planning and other areas. So another update in the new MOU is a discussion of identifying the preferred methods for engagement with SIMP on projects and district processes, and ensuring that SIMP is provided with adequate notice, information, and opportunity to engage with respect to developments undertaken or considered by the district. So those 2 points are really the same thing. And what they're basically saying is that when we have developments where SIMP needs to be engaged, that we will do that. We'll figure out what that process is to make sure that happens appropriately, and we'll work on that in conjunction with SIMP. And speaking on that, the district, we already have a requirement to engage with First Nations, and that's during the development of our official community plan. So that typically that engagement is done on a very early basis, where they engage right at the start of that development. You would see what their thoughts are and see how they want to participate in that OCP process. So this new MOU doesn't add to that process. That already exists under the community charter and actually specifically the Local Government Act. For any significant district projects which result in excavation or disturbance of undisturbed areas, the district should already be considering potential archaeological impacts and engaging with SIMP on those. That is standard development these days. Every municipality does it. It was referred to kind of a bit in the old MOU, but it's become a little bit more of an emphasis under the new MOU. And again, for projects that have an environmental impact. And the one I listed there is probably the main one I could think of would be the invasive yellow iris at Dutch Lake. When we come up and we try to develop a solution, we should be working with SIMF on that. And as well, they have technical expertise in some of these areas that we can not just work with them, but we can, you know, hopefully get some advice and have more of a partnership with them on some of them potentially. So other changes with the new MOU is frequency of meetings. The old MOU said we'll meet on an annual basis, and now the new MOU potentially refers to meeting quarterly. It does, however, contain language that if we don't have a reason to meet, we're not just going to get together and meet just to have a conversation. There still has to be a reason, and there's language that allows that for meetings to be stood down if they're not needed. And then the new MOU has a dispute resolution process built into it. And I think that's actually a great idea, so that if we do disagree on an issue, there's a process we go through so that we help to understand each other's position, and then we come forward to hopefully towards consensus. Unfortunately, the process is laid out. I don't know if you had a chance to review that new MOU. Is a little bit cumbersome, where it's going to take lots of meetings, and SIMF recognizes that and has actually said that they're going to work on that process and try to streamline it. So there may be some small changes to this MOU once that's figured out. And while talking about consensus, it's what we try to achieve. And hopefully on the issues that we talk about, they are issues where truly we can reach consensus on, but it doesn't specifically state that without consensus we can't move forward. In fact, it has language in the MOU that SIMF is free to take any position it chooses with respect to district decisions or development activities and proposals. And the district is free to implement its decisions based on its legislative authority. So this doesn't reduce, and they use a lot of specific legal language, reduce or abrogate or do this. Lots of language in there, but what it's really saying is the district still has its legal authorities that it has now. We may not always agree, and if we don't, we can still move ahead. So things that aren't changed from the previous MOU, the acknowledgement that the lands and the waters within district boundaries are within SIMF territory. That's the foundational element what drives this whole thing. The lands within the boundaries of the district are within SIMF territory. That was recognized previously, and it's recognized again. That the legislative authorities of both parties are unchanged due to the MOU. The purpose of the MOU is to strengthen respect and mutual understanding, improve communications and dialogue by sharing information and working together. And the key areas of interest are relatively unchanged, but since this meeting seems to be going really fast, I'll burn through these. Intergovernmental relationships, educational and learning opportunities, archaeological and cultural protection, environmental protection, economic development, land use planning, and forestry exploration and watershed management. So those are the key areas where we think we can work together as local governments. The updated agreement also includes a termination clause, although it has to go through that dispute resolution process. As I mentioned earlier, the TNRD has already signed off on this MOU with the SIMF First Nation. It's virtually identical, other than there's a bit of differences because the TNRD deals with more than one First Nation and their territory is much bigger. The Village of Aylmont has already entered into a similar agreement, and it's being considered by other municipalities. If council votes to give approval to enter into this engagement, we would end up doing some type of a signing ceremony, perhaps at the next community to community forum. Subsequent to the signing, the district will put in place meeting protocols because it does ask for a working group. So there will, if council is approved and we get to the point of moving this forward, they're asking that there are 2 members of council along with staff to go to a working group. And this is to attend the quarterly meetings and then report back to council. The MOU also talks about the principals, reporting back to the principals. Well, for us, the principals are the district council. So that would be the report back. This MOU actually is a really potentially positive for the district to help us to achieve some strategic priorities. Enhances regional collaboration. As well, under our new emergency management program and the new emergency management regulation coming from the province, includes a requirement that we collaborate with First Nations regarding emergency management. So this form can provide the place, provide a table for those discussions. So one of the key areas, I think, as we get together and meet quarterly potentially, would be to talk about where we're going with emergency management, what are issues, how do we work together better. Finally, strategic advocacy is significantly stronger when we approach higher level local governments in partnerships with First Nations. And there's many, many areas where we need that type of a combined voice, I think. So I think that strategic advocacy will be significantly better with having this renewed MOU. And if this MOU is entered into by both parties, it states specifically that in the MOU that we'll do a joint news release on this.
Okay.
Council, of course, has the option of approving the attached MOU or any other course of action at its discretion. I'm not going to go through the actual MOU itself or the old one, but if council has any questions about it, happy to answer that question.
Questions about the very well done report there, or the MOUs themselves? Wow. Seeing none, there is a recommendation that council approves of entering into attached or substantially similar amended and restated memorandum of understanding and protocol agreement, MOU, between Simpcw First Nation and the District of Clearwater. What's the desire of council? Councillor Herring will make the motion to move forward with this. Councillor Frizzle seconds that. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Oh, sorry, quickly.
Just one question. It would be amazing if we could all have our signatures on this. It is a
That has
historic
actually been
document.
brought up, so that we'll see if that's an option. I don't know if that happened with Valemont. I believe it was more than one signee, at least from each side. So at least I believe that actually did happen. So yeah, that the CAO had noted that as well. So yeah, it is important to stand by it with as many signatures as possible. All those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 16.2, there is a staff report on the public art policy, and there is a recommendation. Is there going to be somebody speaking to this, or questions too? Are there any questions about this one? Okay, Councillor Sim.
Just that the question was, and I think we had talked this, in fact, I think it was Councillor Herring who had raised it, is it still references to recognize, preserve our cultural heritage and artistic diversity, and I wasn't sure if we had identified what cultural heritage was, so I didn't know if we were tied to that. So that was one question. The second question was the composition and whether or not we should include a tourism perspective or an economic development background. And how that might play into it, as opposed to just keeping it to the 5 criteria. And the last one was section 2.3.11, offer advice on all others issues pertaining to public art. And my suggestion would be and potential for place making as part of public art. So in section 2.3.11, it's all I'm suggesting is the addition of potential for placemaking as part of public art.
Okay, give you all a second to look at that. Councillor Bratton, you have a question, comment?
And this is really just a tidbit. It's a clarification under 3.5, under composition. The committee shall include a minimum of 3 in parentheses and a maximum of 6, but 7 is in parentheses. It's really minute, but I actually saw something.
I mean, is assuming it would be 7, so we would have an odd number. So the 6 should be a 7, the written 6 should be a 7. Okay, thank you. Actually, good catch, thank you. Further questions or comments? If not, there is a recommendation. Councillor Sim has suggested a slight amendment. You could make the recommendation with that slight amendment. If you so desire, you can move it as well, Councillor.
I would be interested just for the feedback before, where we can.
On the plate.
Question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know what it means. Placemaking.
Councillor Matheson? So placemaking is something that was brought up in the presentation that Kaylin had done with Simone Vogue. Placemaking, Squamish has done a lot of placemaking, is how you invigorate public spaces. And it's done with a strategic way of illuminating areas. So for example, when COVID was on, a number of communities changed their streets to make it more appealing. They would maybe have outdoor couches, but designed out of pallets or something. So it's a way of creating social engagement in spaces that are not fully utilized. And it can have quite an artistic element to it, and it can add some real dimension to how a community shows itself and presents itself. But if it's just art, sometimes it doesn't have that multifaceted component to it. And that's the only reason why I'm just suggesting the two.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I didn't understand, and I actually really enjoy that.
So we do have a recommendation. And Councillor Sim has made a small. Do you want to move it with that slight amendment, Councillor Sim? Now that you've had
I
the
do,
discussion?
but I also want to know if part of the component should be expanded to a tourism person, or if it's covered in who we have as a suggestion.
I couldn't answer that. I think it's just open to certain. Yeah.
I didn't see it as open, and that's why I'm asking clarifying question on that.
Okay, I'm gonna let staff ponder that for a minute.
Like we've got urban development and we've got established artists, but is there room for another perspective that is sometimes attached to how we present ourselves visually in a community?
Ms. Culp, go ahead if you'd like to.
Yeah, Councillor Sim through Mayor Blackwell. Absolutely, we can add that in. We wanted to make this as broad as possible, just to be able to capture everyone within the community without adding too much verbiage in this. So we can definitely, in the amendment, put that in as well.
So just leave it. So there was a couple of things like 3.6. It said general interest in community-based art programming. Like, would that cover it? Because then it went 3.8 went a little more in depth.
Yeah, that was my idea
Okay.
with.
So that's how you intended it.
Yeah, just so that it was very broad and open.
Okay, so just an interest, not a specialty.
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
lovely.
no, and
Thanks.
that's a fair comment, and we do note sometimes we have a hard time filling committees, so having it sort of broad access with people, but they have to have an interest in this, you know.
And if that's all the criteria, it may open it up. I didn't read it like that and wanted some clarification. So the only adjustment would be to move the recommendation with the amendment of addition of potential for placemaking.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Okay, all those in favor of the amended motion? Thank you, and that passes. Moving on to water meter pilot project. This is something that's been stewing for an awful long time, and there's a staff report on this.
All right. Yeah, it's a pretty exciting opportunity through the Ministry of Housing Municipal Affairs. So it's a 100% funded single-family residential water meter grant. It's kind of targeted at communities our size, between 300 and 3,000 services. Yeah, it seems to fit us pretty exact. So we're just looking for a resolution for council commitment before we apply for the grant.
And this is something we'd struggle with for an awful long time with leak detection and over water usage, and we've discussed this a lot of times. The fact that this is 100% grant funded and would not fall on the taxpayers, you know, there might be a little bit of work by staff and stuff on our side, but the actual stuff would be covered. Councillor Sim, go ahead.
To that point, I wasn't sure what it meant by that council confirms a commitment to cover financial overruns should they occur.
Yeah, and that's if things get too big, but we can also scale this, so that is correct.
Yeah, I think quite often if people go over budget, they ask for more money, and I think they're just saying that up front. They're not going to give you more.
Okay, so, okay, all right.
We need to keep it on budget.
Okay, that's okay. I just
Yeah.
didn't read like that.
Yeah, and
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Yeah. Seconder on that?
Second up.
Seconded by Councilor McKenzie. Yeah, and further discussion on that. I mean, the intent here is to find our water leaks. We put a lot of water into the ground out there that is treated water, and it costs us a lot of money to lose that water into the ground and not be going to the users on the Clearwater water system. So just solving the leakage problem is actually probably going to expand the capacity of our water system to serve new people for quite a lot of years, just by not giving it away for free to the odd lawn, tree, ditch, etc., etc. Any further discussion from council? Councilor Bratton.
And just to clarify, the use of the water meters is to solely detect leaks, not charge people any, or am I understanding that
No,
wrong?
in the future it could be. I mean, that part of the intention of this thing is to also find people that use too much water. But we have a water fee and set rates for water usage already. But I'd be more welcome to hear from staff if they would like to clarify that. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So typically municipalities would have gone on to residential metering. Often will start by letting users of that system voluntarily go on to a pay by usage basis. And then they slowly change over and the people who go onto a pay by usage basis are typically the ones who are very concerned about water conservation and doing the right thing and reducing their usage and thereby impacting the amount that they pay for the water. But then at some point you have to make a decision, where do you go from there? And inevitably they seem to go to water bills based on their actual usage. So you do that changeover. And it does definitely contribute to water conservation. That's been, I think, the most probably unanimous finding of water metering is that people start saving water once they realize how much is being consumed, right? And once they think about, oh, I got to pay for that. So if that hose is out leaking on the front lawn, I better turn that thing off or reduce watering. So there's definitely benefits there as far as water reduction. And then as the mayor mentioned, the water leakage reduction is huge. The district has done a lot of work in the last few years of trying to determine where those leaks are and trying to reduce them, and it has made substantial progress. But as council will recall from all the discussions around infrastructure we've had recently, we've got a significant situation where we don't have the recommended capacity at our existing reservoir for a community of our size. So one of the ways you deal with that is you make sure that that water that's there is available for use and not being leaked out. So this is a great first step. The fact that it's 100% funded is really awesome as well. And as Director Carmichael pointed out, we will do our best to have this project phased in such a manner that we hit that budget number without a large overrun or any overrun, hopefully.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Frizzle.
So my understanding, what you're saying is that it's right now it's to check for water leaks. So would the residents themselves be able to see from their meter how much water they're using? Or is it going to be billed monthly, however that is?
Yes, so when it's individual residents, they would be getting a bill, even if it's not a charge bill, but at least a bill saying, here's the consumption you've had in your residence. At that point in time, if someone sees a massive consumption, but they don't think they could use that much, that causes them to ask us, well, help us to figure out what the problem is. Where did that water go? And that more in-depth, depending on the level of leakage, that can point out significant issues right up front, right?
Yeah, and to that specifically, it helps us determine if there is a water leak, if it's on the owner's side of the meter and our connection, or if it's on our side. And there's also zone metering where you could try to figure out neighborhoods as to if the neighborhood has more leakage and that sort of thing. So it's a fantastic tool to start isolating exactly where issues are. And we've actually had that sort of solution before, and Clearwater just not community-wide.
Can I just add to
Yeah.
that? I know myself that I really want to know if I'm using too much water, especially in the summertime, because, you know, a lot of water is being used. And if I'm going over, I want to know that. It just makes sense to me.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments? There is a recommendation, 3 parts. Does anybody wish to move?
I think I just.
Oh, did you? Oh, sorry. Sometimes we get out of order because generally we're supposed to ask questions before that. So all those in favor? And that passes. Thank you. Sorry. 2025 approving officer appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the point of this report is to appoint Chad Carmichael, our Director of Operations, as the approving officer effective immediately. Our previous approving officer was Jason, the interim CAO. And we had to make that shift because he is now working for a complete other city, working for the city of Colwood. So, so the role of the approving officer, I'm sure we were all probably aware of it, so I won't go in a high level of detail. It's quasi-judicial and independent, and it's a critical part of that whole subdivision process. Typically, the reports are done, they bring to him, and he's the final sign-off. And by quasi-judicial and independent, it means that if he decides, if the approving officer makes a decision, it's very difficult to challenge that. So it is a separate role from Director Carmichael's role as a director of the city. It's a separate role with its own authority.
Questions of Mr. Johnson on this? Councillor Frizzle?
Will this help streamline development issues?
Thank you. This step in itself, I don't think will help to streamline it, other than if there's questions that the approving officer needs to have answered prior to being able to approve something. Well, he has the consulting budget and a legal budget and can get to work on that directly, as opposed to a third party such as we used to have, a consulting approving officer who then would have to get back to us and say, well, answer these questions. So there may be a chance for a bit more of a direct, I have a question, I need this answered, and a budget to answer the questions, right? So that might lead to a little bit of streamlining, but still it is a separate process which requires a sign off, and so potentially yes, but not a massive amount.
Okay, Councillor Masson, did you have your scratching? No? Okay, sorry, Councillor Sim then.
I'll move the recommendation. It'll be nice to have somebody who's actually in the community as opposed to outside.
By Councillor Frizzle. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. And that passes. And then the last one under this category is staff report on 2023, 2024 council attendance report. I know that Councillor Frizzle gets a gold star.
No.
There is a recommendation, but this is the first time this has come up for us that I can think of. I know it's part of our procedure bylaw. I don't see it elsewhere. There is some stuff generally when we deal with things, if there are too many excused absences, that there is a conversation about that, but that's generally not the case here. And there are a lot of different reasons why people can be absent from meetings. Is there a way to just not do this?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Blackwell. And I'm sure what Councillor Sim is getting to is that, yes, as part of our update to the council procedure bylaw, this could be taken out. It's not seen in many other municipalities. In fact, I couldn't find one yet, so I don't know where this came from.
Thank you for the action. Further questions or comments? So there is a recommendation that the council receives this attendance report for 2023 and 24 for information. We can either not accept it, we can move to accept, staff have done the work, or we can just leave it.
I'll move to accept it.
Thank you, Councillor Herring. Seconded by Councillor McKenzie. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor? Thank you for the work on that, and let's hope you never have to do it again. There is nothing under bylaws, nothing under correspondence response requested. Ironically, I just had a Zoom call with this organization, ICBA, and this is a letter related to protecting taxpayers from overspending on local government construction. If not, do you have a question or comment on that, Councillor Herring?
Just a comment. It's very noble of them to protect taxpayers from overspending. It would be nice if they protected their employees from having no benefits, no paid time off, unreasonable wages, all of the above. There's a reason we prefer unionized contractors in general, and it's because they take care of their people.
Thank you for your comments. I will leave that one alone with a 10-foot pole. Under item 20.1, I'm proposing a notice of motion, mental health supports for local government elected officials. There is a recommendation there, and I'll read that out loud and I'll explain where this is coming from a little bit. Whereas the stresses faced by local elected officials are increasing due to degradation of the tone of civil discourse, and whereas additional mental health supports for local elected officials would be beneficial beyond what is provided by a medical services plan and extended health plans. Therefore, be it resolved that UBCM call upon the province of British Columbia to implement initiatives that offer mental health supports tailored to the needs of local government elected officials in British Columbia. This comes out of a conversation at UBCM between a group of elected officials. This same recommendation is coming forward from sponsor municipalities to every local government association. I was asked to put this one forward through Clearwater to SILGA, which is the intent of this, so that it can be endorsed by all local government associations going to UBCM as a motion on the floor, or yeah. So this has long been a project of several local leaders. Richard Stewart, the mayor of Coquitlam, or Port Coquitlam, off the top of my head, I always phase out between the two, and the previous local government to have a form of healthcare related to mental health for local elected officials. I would note that in surveys of local governments, it varies from zero opportunity paid for or supports from the local government to larger cities which have actually quite robust mental health programs. And it's not just limited to the largest cities, it's all across the scale in British Columbia. But that is why it's coming forward, is so that we can ask the provincial government to help support this type of initiative and start working on mental health supports for local elected officials. So there is a recommendation. I can move it, I guess, but it's a notice of motion. So I haven't done one of these in a long time. So Mr. Prime, would you like to explain the procedure?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Blackwell. Because this is a notice of motion, it is being moved by Mayor Murray Blackwell. And also, as part of our council procedure bylaw, because this was supplied ahead of time and it's on the agenda, it can be voted on this agenda right now.
Okay, discussion or a seconder. Councillor Sim.
So my discussion on it is, for me, it makes it a little uncomfortable because there's so many areas in life that also require this, that those professions don't have it. So I'm uncomfortable with that. But I am just curious about the fact where it says additional mental health supports for local affected beyond what is provided by medical services plan and extended health plans. How many councils actually have access to extended plans?
Quite a lot. Some of them are done through their cities and towns, but there is also the opportunity at the beginning of your term to do that as an elected official through, I believe, UBCM, but you have to do it at the beginning of your term because the intent is to balance out insurance programs so that you're not just signing on when you need that service. Okay. Further questions? If not, anybody would like to second this?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor McKenzie. All those in favor? Thank you. Anyone opposed? Thank you, Councillor Sim. We move on to public question and comment period. Any questions from the public? Come up to the mic in relation to items on the agenda. Or sorry, Ben, you can do it from there if you'd like, or Annabelle, if you'd like to go first.
I'd like to know why we need another cannabis store. We've already got one.
That is not a decision of council at this point. It's just to move forward with the zoning to get feedback from the public, and I'm quite sure we'll get a lot of feedback from the public. So we haven't made a decision on that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today.
And just please introduce yourself, because Annabelle is a frequent flyer here, but maybe not everybody on Zoom and the public record knows who you are.
So my name is Ben Mincy. I'm the owner of the current cannabis store, Raff Peak Cannabis. I just have some questions regarding the amendment application to allow cannabis retail in the C2 zoning. Given that the original zoning regulations for cannabis retail were carefully restricted to MX1 and C1, why is the council now considering a proposal to allow cannabis within C2 zoning, an area that was strictly deemed unsuitable for this purpose? If this proposed amendment were approved, it would be directly contradicting the current regulations, which were thoughtfully considered. Additionally, with the building being zoned C2, is this not a valuable space where a different type of business, which already adheres to the C2 zoning, could benefit the community in greater ways rather than a second cannabis store which would only damage an existing locally owned business? Does this proposal really serve Clearwater's long-term interests in protecting economic diversity, community values, and proper urban planning? Thank you for considering my questions, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions or comments from council at this point? Any comments or questions from staff? Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, I think it would be really helpful if you could kind of articulate that down into a document of some sort and submit it to staff or to the office so we can actually have a hard look at it.
For sure. Basically, I believe that C2 would be better utilized for a different type of business. Obviously, me being the cannabis store in town, I'd probably come off as a bit biased. Although competition is should be welcomed, I personally am, since I'm in the industry, I know that it's a little bit of a harder industry to compete in. There's been many other places around BC and Canada where small towns or even larger cities have had too many cannabis stores and some have had to close down. Me being locally situated for many years now, being a longtime visitor, I would hate to have that happen to my store due to this new store having a better storefront. Basically, I'm asking if the council really sees this as a proper decision, and I would like the council to carefully consider the implications that could come from it.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Sim.
I just have a question for staff. Is that for the public hearing, is it appropriate for Ben to put together that summary? Because you were the first application to Clearwater. You were
There may have been one application before me, but that was another rezone application, which wasn't a full cannabis application.
So I'm just wondering, just because there's been a historical context for it in Clearwater and the fact that it was new regulations and how you had to make your decisions for your store, is that's something. The other thing is although Clearwater's been deemed as acceptable up to 3, I don't know if we had any data that said, well, what's up to 3? I'm asking staff, is that appropriate to, is that, how does that present it, that historical, which I think you're alluding to?
Go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. And through the mayor to you, Councillor. So yes, Raft River could certainly put out bring a letter and have it as part of the official record at the, either a letter and come and present it right at the public hearing. That is it. Absolutely. That is the point of it, to people for or against the proposal.
Right. And so to your point about being maybe sensitive about being biased, I think that's the point here, is to bring that position. Like if that's...
Well, I would hate to have a conflict of interest, but at the end of the day, it directly does affect
You're
me.
representing you. The conflict of interest is if anybody here at council were to take a stance on this before hearing all evidence from the hearing. That's where we are. That's our position. Okay, that's what our job is. Councillor Matheson.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we're clear though that council does not dictate what business comes into town. Our position is the zoning that may allow that.
And that's why my question, I generally tried to focus on the zoning aspect of it.
Yeah, great.
Generally,
just as long as we're clear on that. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further questions. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Are any further comments or questions from the public? Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, councillors, staff, my name's Debbie Sabian, and I am the manager of Barrier Buds. I'm just here to kind of say competition isn't really a part of it. We have just 15 minutes down the road, we have a cannabis store, and it hasn't seemed to be hurting us at all. Also, that building has been empty for a while, so there too, it'll help promote tourism. It'll help promote business to Clearwater, and I sell a lot to people my age.
I'm just, hold on a second here. We're venturing into the public hearing zone here. And I thank you for coming, and you will have the ability to represent at the public hearing, but we don't want to predetermine anything with opinions before that public hearing. But yeah, thank you for speaking your mind. And I know I did let Mr. Mincy speak to the question. He was asking questions. But we should probably take this for absolute keeping this clean and wait for this kind of comment to the
Well, I was just more or less going against competition.
Yeah.
Because I can state
And
there
thank
isn't
you for
any.
the comments on that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And also, you can send in a written report as well.
Yeah, and as the applicant, they have that all right already. So yeah. Any further questions or comments from the public? Seeing. Oh, hold on. Yeah.
Just wondering, what is the open house about tomorrow?
What is the list of items we'd be covering? It's pretty much anything you want to talk about within reason. But what was the primary original focus was development cost charges and a couple of things.
Corridor.
It's the yes. I'll let staff speak to this, but Dutch Lake Corridor. There's multiple things that we'd like you public input on.
And where is this going to be held at?
Here.
Oh, it is going to be here.
4 to 7, I believe.
4 to 7.
Yeah.
Okay, and I can look.
And go ahead, Mr. Johnson, whatever you want.
Thank you. So this is going to be a bit of a skill testing question for council. Then what we sent you a note. What we're going to cover? Do you remember? Sorry, that was cheeky.
30. I'm going to go with the Loggers Memorial, the parks down here, 37 East, which is the empty parking lot that used to be the Chuck Wagon. The roadway and the paths along in front of Dutch Lake there, which have come up. Development cost charges. I think there's the boat launch and budget. Oh my, budget. The most important thing, according to Ms. Klassen, budget. This is what we're here for. So it's a bit of a catch-all of all things. But yeah, experts or members of council, because they don't always line up, will be there to assist and answer questions. And Mr. Johnson has further.
Thank you. You got just about them all. There's a couple more. There's the final, hopefully, consultation on the cemetery bylaw. And then there's also, we will have our representative Chance Breckenridge here to talk about the fire smarting program in the community and encouraging people to sign up to that. And I think that covers it.
Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
There will be no soup recipes, but if somebody from council has one and you'd like to share back and forth, we'll take that too.
Okay, so 4 to 7 tomorrow.
4 to 7 tomorrow.
Thank
Will there be refreshments, snacks, or anything along those lines? There will be. So might be free cookies or something along those lines. Thank you so much, everybody. There is the need to move in camera. There's a recommendation that meeting be closed to the public pursuant to section 91 of the community charter to discuss matters relating to A, personal information or about an identifiable individual who holds or is being considered for a position as an officer, employee, or agent of the municipality or other position appointed by the municipality, and I, discussions with municipal officers and employees respecting municipal objectives, measures, and progress reports for the purpose of preparing an annual report under section 98. 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public, and 2B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence related to negotiations between the municipality and the provincial government or the federal government or both, or between the provincial government and the federal government or both and a third party. Whew. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor McKenzie, seconded by Councillor Bratton to move it in camera. All those in favor, and we will take a recess till 3:45. Thank you.